This is the Misdirected Mark Podcast, a podcast about gaming, game mastering, and entertaining you, our listeners. We are explicit, and you have been warned, and I'd like to thank Mike Willard for letting us use his music on our show. Now let's pick up those mics and get on with this thing.
Yeah, buddy, let's pick up those mics and get on with this thing. Yeah. Rock and roll, baby.
Oh, all right. I'm cool. Look, I want to run that game, but I'm not sure if I should. I mean, the mechanics are a bit daunting, and I think I need another read through the rules. And I don't know. Maybe the game's just better if we play, we wait and play it in person than just trying to play it over Zoom.
Bill, what's going on? You're streaming out excuses. Don't you want to run the game?
Yeah, I do. I really do want to run the game. I just I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm ready to run it.
That's cool. What would make you more comfortable to run it?
I mean, I think it'd be good if I heard someone else running it. So maybe if I just could find an AP or something and just kind of hear how to run the game. It might give me an idea of just how to handle framing scenes and making checks and things like that.
Cool. And if you heard someone else run it, you think you'd be more comfortable with it?
Yeah, no, I totally do. I think I would. I think if I heard, if I could just hear it, I think it would help.
Okay, then hang on. There's a link to a great AP. Put your headphones on and listen, and Jerry and I will get the show going.
Oh, all right, cool, guys. Thanks.
Hey, no problem.
No problem. And welcome to the 398th episode of the Misdirected Mark Podcast. Tonight we're talking about GM confidence, how to find it, how to bolster it, and what to do if it goes away. But first, my name is Jerry.
My name is Phil.
And I am, of course, Old Man Logan.
All righty. First of all, quick check before we jump into the one thing. How are we all doing? We took a little mental health break last week, which is, totally cool because we are still in extraordinary times. It actually helped me greatly. I didn't realize I needed it, but I kind of needed it. So I definitely relaxed. In fact, I think we all went on the Minecraft server and just kind of chilled for a couple hours last Tuesday, right?
Yeah. Quite a few people were on. I think we were up to 8 people last time, just hanging out.
Yeah. How about time? Bob? How about you? How are you doing?
Apparently, nobody can hear me.
Really? I hear you fine.
Me too.
All right. Well, Bob works on that. Bob's doing okay. But Jerry, how about you, man? How are you doing? You've got one of the more normal lockdown experiences because you have to go to work.
I have to go to work. It's actually been really good. It's been a ton of paperwork over the last couple of weeks, last couple of days, because we finally got approved for our payroll loan, and so just going through that was several steps along the way. Doing a lot more training. We did some job interviews because I'm going to hire another person and add them to our staff. It was really nice. And today we did we just celebrated Taco Tuesday by bringing in some salsaritas and listening to some Metalachi. So
nice.
Always a good start.
I also celebrated Taco Tuesday by making some tacos this evening before the show. So not the most challenging culinary feat that I have, but I definitely I definitely enjoy making them, and my son loves tacos. So, he came downstairs and saw me cook it, and he was like, "Yes!" He's like, "It's been forever."
All right, can anybody hear me now? I know Phil and Jerry can hear me, but let's see if the chat room can hear me because I am getting actual thingamajiggers. All right, good.
Yep, they got you.
Yeah, the USB codec thing, OBS doesn't remember the settings in between if another show uses the streamer. So if somebody else used the Twitch, then or the thing, then somebody else's whatever. I said your words.
But you're here now.
I am here now.
Yeah.
So how about you, man? How about you? You were the one who actually last week was like, "Hey, I could use a little downtime."
Yeah, I was just not feeling good about anything last week. I was just so I was like, I gotta take a night off. So I just jumped in, and I think I played Factorial for a while. I played Minecraft for a while, and then that was it.
Are you feeling better now?
Yeah, I much better today. I actually took today off from work. I got up this morning and I was like, I am not feeling it. And I went, nope. Emailed my boss, said I'm not gonna do it today. Took a PTO and then went back to bed for a while. And
I scheduled one for Friday, and when I scheduled it, realized it's only the 4th day off I've had this year.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's including, I haven't taken any sick days this year. So I've only this is only the 4th day I've taken off in 2020. And I was like,
you do.
I think I'm ready for a 3-day weekend. Like, I think I'm ready to not work all day Friday and just roll it in the weekend.
I may save that for Memorial Day. I haven't actually taken a day off since October, so I'm going to get some time off.
I know it's tough. It's tough for you because you're at the helm. Like I'm in a position that if I take a day off for almost everything I have on my plate, somebody else will keep it going. The only exception is that I'm working 9 to 10 on Friday to run one really important meeting that I have. And then I'm taking the rest of the day off after 10 o'clock. I just wasn't confident that I could hand that meeting off and have it make progress. So I was like, I'll just bend the rules a little and not worry about that hour. So
I have the problem that I'm tightly wound, and I always feel like if I take a day off, I'm like, I could be there doing something. It's the same reason I don't go to sleep at night is because I'm like, you know what, I could sleep or I could actually get something done. And that's
there. You and I are very much alike. I've actually had to just talk about this a little, and then we can transition over to the lobby. But I actually made an effort over the last week or two not to describe my weekends in terms of productivity. Like I normally, if you ask me about my weekend, I don't know if I'm sure you've noticed this. Mm-hmm. If you ask me about my weekend, I will tell you all the things I got done during the weekend, right? Like, I had a really good weekend. I got this done. I got that done. I got this done. I got that done. And right now, during this lockdown, I made a conscious effort to stop talking about my weekend in terms of things I did and start talking about it in terms of how I feel.
Yeah.
So this is a good weekend because I feel refreshed and recharged. And if that means I didn't do anything, like for instance, on Sunday, I think I played 2 hours of Mario Kart Tour, which we'll talk about in the conversation corner. But I was like, I feel good. I have a whole bunch of projects that aren't going anywhere and aren't getting done. And that is just going to be like that until we're in a place where this is all better. So I'm just affecting my speech to talk about my weekends in terms of did I accomplish my goal of feeling better?
Yeah.
So, which is tough for me, man, because I am like Jerry, right? I'm like, well, I could sleep or it's why I love Minecraft, right? Minecraft is the ultimate in productivity masturbation, right? It's like, I'm going to go build a thing, make a thing, find a thing, fix a thing, right? Without actually doing any of those things, right? There's no real world consequences for it, but yet it sparks all the same feelings in my head. I mean, I make fucking to-do lists for Minecraft and then check them off. Yeah. So I'm well aware of, that. Anyway, we can get into a little more of that in the conversation quarter, but I do think, while we're still in lockdown and stuff, that, talking about how we're doing and stuff is a good way to lead the show. I will say, just as a quick update for people who are not either in the U.S. and listening to us or elsewhere in the U.S. So we, all three of us, obviously are in New York, and all of us are actually scattered around Buffalo. We are still in a state of lockdown. Statewide lockdown continues until May 15th. And then regional lockdowns will take over, where each region of the state, our state has 11 regions made up of multiple counties. Each region has to meet a certain set of criteria in order to begin a 4-phased approach to resuming normal daily operations. And each one of those has a 2-week space in between them to make sure that we don't backslide.
Yeah.
So as it is right now, our region has only 3 of the 7 criteria met to unlock, which means that on the 15th, we may not even be able to unlock. And then even if we are, we have probably 4 weeks before offices will open up again, and like another 4 weeks before probably we're recording in person. Like, yeah. I think phase 3 includes restaurants, and maybe at phase 3 we can talk about, hanging out in small groups and stuff, but it's going to be a little while.
Yep.
So we're not anywhere. I know other states are unlocking and they have different ways of unlocking. New York State's taking a very measured approach to it.
It's very well thought out.
It's very well thought out. It's data driven. Like, you have to prove by the numbers that it's safe to unlock. And if not, things will either halt or go backwards. And it is what it is.
Yeah,
so
most of the governmental people we've talked to around here think that Buffalo, we're probably going to be in some state of caution until the end of June, and probably won't see like theaters and that opening up until at least the end of July.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So we're So we'll. It's just going to be like this for a little while for us.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll likely lead our shows off with that. But let's take a break from talking about that, and let's talk about one thing that's going on with each of us. Bob, yesterday,
one thing
was May the 4th.
One thing. Yes, I rewatched. I did not do as much as some people did. I watched a little bit of A New Hope. I watched a little bit of Empire. I watched a little bit of Return of the Jedi. But for Star Wars Day, I watched the entirety of Rogue One.
Oh.
And then I was like, oh, so sad. Why am I watching the depressing movie where everybody dies? Spoiler alert. It's like many years old now. But I enjoy that movie so much. To me, it was the perfect. People complain about it, that there wasn't enough time to get to know some of those characters and I'm like, I think they did a fine job of getting you to know each character just enough that you were like, oh no, they're all going to die. And when that movie was announced and it said like, this is going to be like a war movie in the Star Wars universe, I said, if you're going to do a Star Wars war movie, everybody on that mission better fucking die.
And
seriously, like, because like we've never heard from any of them again.
Yep.
First of all, and second of all, it's a war movie. Consequences and repercussions, right? It's it's like the Dirty Dozen of Star Wars. I'm like, to do it right, everybody needs to come out of that movie dead.
I have zero critique of that movie. Like, I love that movie in every way possible. I love the characters. I love the story. I love the way it ends. I love the way it looks. Love, 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 love. The only thing I'm sad about is that in the trailer, there is a line that I love so much that it's actually not in the movie.
What's that?
The one where Jin says, "We're rebels, we rebel."
Oh yeah.
Like,
I don't know why they cut that one, but
they got it. I loved it. Like, that was the line when the trailer came out. That was the line that when I saw it, I was like, I'm in.
Yep.
Like, I'm in. I'm watching this movie.
Yep.
Yeah. Evil John has a great.
I just killed me. I just
Force
saw
10 from Naboo. More like Force 10 from Jeddah, but we're close enough. We're good there. Or from Yavin, because that's where they launched from before the. Anyhow.
Like where Ewoks dare.
Where Ewoks dare, where Yoda's dare.
All right, I'm going to apologize for a second. I'm messing with my mic stand, which will make uncomfortable sounds. But my daughter broke my mic stand, and it is only on 2 legs now.
Oh no!
So I've had to do some work to get it to balance, and it is failing to balance properly.
I hate when
I have a new one coming, but as you know, in the current world order,
some things are quick, some things aren't.
Amazon is no longer fast, so I get my new mic stand on Thursday. Anyway, I think I've got it fixed up, and I don't think I was too loud about fixing it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But yeah, that's what I did for Star Wars Day. I watched Rogue One and thoroughly enjoyed it yet again.
Excellent choice.
So yeah.
Excellent choice.
Jerry, what about you?
Well, I decided after everybody's been telling me how good it was, I said I would watch The Community. I'd never seen it before. I started binge watching it. I was only about 2 seasons in before I realized that it was the guys from Rick and Morty and the guys from the Avengers directing the thing and writing the thing. And then that becomes very obvious when you start watching some of the thing. I liked the characters. I really liked the stories. I can see why people thought it was a great show when it was on. You can definitely see the origin of some of the Rick and Morty sequences in the community. It's a lot of fun to watch that way. And every season, if you haven't seen the show, every season there's an episode about campus-wide paintball that has John Wick level action sequences in it.
Wow.
Most of them being parodies of other movies, and sometimes if you've never seen it, it's a really fun show. It's got some interesting characters.
Which one is Community?
And it's fun. That's the one.
I think my brain conflated Community with Parks and Rec.
It's similar. They actually talk about Parks and Rec on the Community. The Community is about a lawyer gets disbarred because he never actually got his degree, so he has to go to community college. And when he's trying to hit on a girl, he ends up accidentally starting a study group to become a group of close friends.
Okay, I've never seen that one then.
There are two Dungeons and Dragons episodes where they play Dungeons and Dragons. The first one is priceless. And it's got a lot of really good character actors and some really good people and Chevy Chase. So
that's right.
It's he's the only real, and they do a good job of just making him into the asshole that he is in real life. So it's not bad. It's a lot of fun. There's just really good. It's Joel McHale and Daniel Pudi and I can't think of the guy, Ken Jeong and Allison Brie and Jillian Michaels and a bunch of others that come on, and a lot of guest stars. So anyway, if you like really fun comedies with a lot of heart and a lot of sarcastic humor and action sequences every couple episodes, it's a good show. So, Phil, what did you do for your one thing?
Sunday, we played Forbidden Lands, our 21st installment of Forbidden Lands.
21 sessions.
21 sessions of Forbidden Lands. It's gonna climb up there as one of the longest running games. It's easily the longest running game I've run in 10 years. But I think it's even going to eclipse some other longer campaigns by the time we're done. We finished our first major arc, which did not go the way I thought it was going to go based on the opening roll of the fight.
Oh, man.
The demon creature that they unlocked from the vault comes out. It hits them with a fear attack. I roll 4 6s, and all of them break and run.
It was like, oh, we didn't take into account fear. Well,
it was like
shit.
It was like Ghostbusters. It comes out the door and they're like, and they run upstairs. And luckily they had left their NPC guard at the top of the stairs. And the guard was able to heal Sean's character, our healer and druid. She was able to heal everyone else. And then the fight, the fight was able to resume. But it was touch and go, man. That fight was all over the place.
Yep.
It was fun. So it was good. So we finished essentially the first major arc. We're going to get ready to kick off the arc that will at least one arc, if it's not 2, to do the Raven's Purge campaign. So I'm excited about that. So that was our thing. The game has transitioned really well to Roll20. Roll20 has some good support for it, so it actually does all the specific dice rolls. That's actually really neat. Jim, who's in our game group, figured out how to do macros so you can make some of the other dice rolls that you want using the Roll20 stuff. We've got the initiative deck down, so we can actually deal out the initiative cards and all that stuff. So it's actually doing a commendable job of being in Roll20. So that's also been really nice because it's made transitioning a lot easier. Cool. All right. So that's our one thing. I'm going to just jump us over to announcements really quick. I have one business announcement to make, and then we'll roll into our feature segment, which is all about GM confidence. But first, the Salon episodes are coming. So, as we mentioned at the top of the show, we're all still in lockdown. We're going to be for a little while. It has its own strain. on us, week to week, day to day. So what we don't want to do is we don't want to pause the show, take a break or anything like that beyond possibly a week here and there, although we're going to try even not to do that. But we do need a way to kind of lighten up some of the work that's done during the week to put the show together. So we're going to follow something similar to what Pandas did with the Chit Chat episodes that have been coming out. We're going to dust off a room in the house Misdirected that we have not used in a long time. But we did. If you are a longtime listener, you will remember the salon. We're going to dust off the salon, and we're going to do some episodes that are going to be based in the salon. And I'll talk about it more in detail next week when we get into it. But the salon is a place where we talk about games that we're playing, media that we're consuming, and other things, and relate that back to gaming, game design, and GMing. So by all means, the show will still be a gaming podcast. So, if you're listening because you're like, I'm listening to the show and I don't give a shit about these three guys, I really just want my GMing advice, you'll still get that with the salon. What it takes off of, and to be honest, what it takes off of me primarily is the week's worth of work it takes to put the show script together, right? There's research and outlining and writing scripts and all of that. So it kind of just takes that away, which makes it a little lighter on me. I've been on a huge stretch of writing episodes.
Yeah, you've been a trooper throughout this whole thing, getting these episodes ready. So,
yeah, you guys have, listen, we've all done our parts, right? Bob wrangled OBS, and we transitioned from running out of Jerry's place, which Jerry had to do a whole bunch of work when we moved over to Jerry's. Now, and to move over to us being remote, like we've all done a lot of work, and we're kind of in a place where until this kind of lets up a bit, I could use it to be a little easier. So I'm not saying we're going to do only salon episodes, but we're going to do a couple, and then we'll throw an episode in, that kind of thing. But the salon episodes are certainly easier to prep because it really is just talking about what's going on in our lives, and then relating it to gaming and just having a discussion around it. And because we have the chat room, they will also be able just to toss us questions either related to the stuff that we're talking about, or they can just ask us questions in general, and we'll field those as well. So next week will be our first salon episode. And then, like I said, we'll probably do some more of those as lockdown continues. Sound good?
Cool.
Yeah.
All righty.
All right.
Then
you got a drink of water?
All right. Let me prepare. I have my coffee. Hang on. I will prepare my voice to.
Do we have a bumper for the salon?
We may. I'll have to double check.
I don't know. It's been a while since we did the salon. Maybe I don't.
We can work on one.
We'll
figure.
We'll
have
to figure that out. Okay.
All right. Ready.
I'm ready when you are.
All right. Go.
Workshop. Talking about confidence. You want to have confidence to run the best game. You're going to need it. When you lose it, you're going to want to find it. And when it's low, you're going to want to make it bigger. Workshop confidence.
Don't suck. Boo to the baby.
All right, hang on. Okay, that one got me right at the back of the throat. Going deep on that one. Phrasing.
Yes.
Okay. You just let that slide. Let it slide. Okay. So the idea for this came up a few weeks ago on Slack. So one of our Slack members, Star Crash, was talking about his wife running her first Dark Heresy scenario, and how after she got the first game run, she was feeling like a lot more confident about GMing and about continuing to GM. And it got me thinking about the importance of confidence when it comes to GMing, because I myself, I think almost at the same time that Star Crash posted that, I had on the fly run Trophy Gold for Jerry and Chris one night when our other game was on hold. And I did not have a lot of confidence running that game that night. And so it got me thinking about how important confidence is when it comes to GMing, because we spend a lot of time talking about skills, right? We talk a lot of time about how to narrate and frame things, and we talk about how to take apart mechanics and all of that. But you can have all of that knowledge, you can have all of those skills, but if you lack confidence, you will not GM a game.
Sorry, I lost the page.
Oops.
It was so well timed.
I'm sorry, I was reading the chat room. But sorry. But at this point, it's worth noting that we are no means therapists or psychologists, so take this all with a grain of salt. What we are, we're experienced GMs who have over the years gained and lost confidence in different areas of GMing over the many, many years, decades, getting longer.
We've been around
close to half a century. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what we're talking about tonight should not be taken as any kind of clinical advice, but should be looked at more anecdotal, some ideas and some thoughts about what to do.
Yeah, that's our disclaimer. I think it's important because I was like, when I started writing this, I was like, ooh, we better make clear. Like, I mean, I go to a lot of therapy, but by no means makes me a therapist in any stretch of the imagination.
I'm not a therapist, but I do sleep about a mile away from a Holiday Inn Express.
Correct. So, but what Jerry said is true, right? Combined, we have easily over half a century of GMing experience among us. I would dare say if we put the pen to paper, we're closing in on a century's worth of GMing experience. So that's what we're going to do tonight. We are going to talk about GM confidence, just the confidence to game master.
Mm-hmm. But first, Phil, define exactly what that means.
All right. We're going to do this.
I was watching it this time.
Behold! You are in the presence of Definition Panda.
You take 1 week off and the transitions and just look like all over the place.
Yeah. Professional.
Yes.
Okay. So when we are
amateur,
not professional, amateur. All right. So when we talk about confidence, we are going to define that as a feeling of self-assurance arising from one's appreciation of one's own abilities or qualities. And in terms of GMing, we mean that we are self-assured to run a game because we appreciate our own abilities as a GM and our qualities as a game master. So let's just dismantle that a little bit, right? So when we're talking about abilities, we are talking about like our skills as a GM.
For example, our storytelling skills. How do we create good NPCs and scenarios and settings? Our tactical skills. Can we run interesting and challenging encounters? Not just combat, just generally encounters. And also system mastery. How well do we know how the rules all work together?
Yeah, and then when we talk about qualities, we're talking about like some of the more intangible things about ourselves and our GMing style.
For example, are we being entertaining? Are we making it fun for everyone? Are we being engaging? Are we keeping people interested in the game itself? And are we being popular? Do people like gaming with us? And do they like doing things outside the game? Because gaming can often be the hub of a larger social group.
Sure. And you know, I'm not saying one should chase popularity, but like popular is certainly a quality that some people have in terms of GMing and stuff. Okay, cool. So our confidence is what determines how comfortable we are to GM a game, which is different from if you like it to like or not. It's different than whether you get or spend energy from GMing, right? So there's like some people when they GM get the cool GM high and love it, right? They soak in energy from GMing. Other people GM and that's good. They GM, they're done, and like they want to go take a nap or chill out or whatever. That's different from having the confidence to do it, right? One of those things is just what does GMing give you? The other one is how do you feel about what's your comfort level for GMing, right? And it's confidence that gets us behind the screen.
Yeah, because when we have it, we can be lacking in some abilities or qualities that make us GMs, but we can still GM the game. But if we lack GM confidence, no matter how skilled we are, we're just not going to GM.
Yeah, I mean, and so I don't want to be mean about this, but sometimes you run into this, and I say in convention settings because that's the only place I ever run into GMs that I don't know personally. So you run into this in convention settings when you play with other GMs, that there'll be people who don't really have either refined skills or a lot of experience or whatever, but because they got confidence, like they're GM, and that's awesome, right? Like, I mean, that's not a problem, right? Like there's no threshold, like you must be able to do this in order to GM a game. There's probably some minimum threshold, but most people, if you have enough confidence to get behind the screen, have met most of those. But the truth is, there are some people who, will just do it, even if they're not great at it. And there are other people who are like, well, I don't really want to GM unless like I really can do this, or I don't want to GM I only want to GM under certain circumstances. And that gets us to that this thing is, it's not an all or nothing prospect.
I mean, we can be really confident in running one game, but not be really confident in running others. That makes a big difference on how we feel about the present game we're about to play.
Yeah, we may be confident running for friends, but don't like running for strangers.
We can be confident about running at home, but not confident running in public, regardless of who's there.
Yep. We may be confident about running a one-shot, but not be confident about running a whole campaign.
Because confidence is not etched in stone. It's going to ebb, it's going to flow. You're going to sometimes have it, and sometimes you're going to lose it.
Yeah, we may be confident at one time, and then not confident at a later date. We may lack confidence at some point and gain it later.
Well,
so where does jamming confidence come from, Jerry?
Well, as the good witch quoted, "You don't need to be helped any longer. You've always had the power to go back to Kansas."
Right.
Which is the point where Dorothy should have just punched her right in the face.
Right. But. Yes, exactly. What could have solved this? We could have solved this 2 hours ago.
Yeah.
Much like the Roger Rabbit, are you saying you could have taken your hand out of these handcuffs at any time?
No, only when it was funny.
Right. So to the good witch's point, right? Confidence is internal. And that's a bitch. Like, let's just put that on the table. Like, that's a bitch.
Mm-hmm. Because in the definition, we said that confidence comes from self-assurance. The only person who's going to give you confidence or take confidence from you is you. And as a GM, it's important to remember that you can give yourself confidence. Because the way it happens is based on your perception of your abilities and qualities. There's a bunch of things that are going to come into play here. For example, self-awareness.
Yeah, so that's your ability to see your true self, right? Your strengths, your weaknesses, the things you're good at, the things that you should work on and improve.
There's also going to be the expectations that you have and that you feel others have for you.
Yeah, your ability to understand and set expectations is actually really important, right? It answers questions like, how good do I need in order to be able to run this? How well do I need to know the rules to be able to pull this game off?
And lastly, and this is going to be one of the most important ones, is your past experiences as a GM.
Yeah, this one definitely carries weight, right? So have you had a couple of good past games? Because that goes back to the little story I told at the beginning, right? If you had a good session, if you just ran a good session, you're going to feel like a little more confident about running your next one. But even the most experienced GM, if you tank a game, like totally tank it, like the speed at which doubt will creep into your mind is blazingly fast. Even again, for the most experienced GMs, a complete flop is still a devastating moment.
Yeah. And this is why a lot of new GMs are going to have confidence issues. They don't have the experience to know how to set expectations, and they don't have all the good games that they've already run to bolster themselves against the bad games, assuming that your past games were good.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It's also why experienced GMs almost always give the same advice to new GMs, right? Which is like, you just got to run the game, right? It's not terrible advice, right? It sounds offhandish and kind of shitty when new GMs are like, how do I get to be a better GM? And like every GM's like, you got to run games. The point we're making is that you got to run games in order to have some of that past experience and to get a good feel for figuring out the expectations. Once you've run the same game a few times, you'll know which rules you need and don't need. And you'll know how much material you need in order to pull off a game with your friends versus a game at a con. But the only way to do that is to actually do it. You can ask a whole bunch of people about it. Sorry, you can ask a whole bunch of people about it, but ultimately, you got to do it. Anyway.
Yeah, and there's going to be times coming up that we're going to talk about the ways you can build your own confidence and ways that you can get that experience ahead of time. Mm-hmm. Just looking at how to be a better GM. So
yeah. So ways that we build up confidence, right? It's useful to know that that there are different ways to build up confidence in your career as a GM, because you will need different things at different points in your career, right? And there's a bunch of different routes that you can go in order to build up confidence.
First of all, you want to improve your skills. Do a self-assessment of your skills. And if it's positive, your confidence goes up. If you know that you know the rules, if you know that you've got a good scenario, if you know that you created something that you find fun, that's the big thing. Make sure you find it fun. And if you think you're going to have a good time, confidence and fun are contagious. If you're having a good time, other people are generally going to have a good time with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I say so, like we said self-assessment. Because you can ask other people, but other people is always tricky, right? Like, it takes a really good trusting group to be really candid with you about your GMing skills, right? If you ask people at a con and they've generally had a good experience at the con, they'll just be like, oh, no, it was great. It was great. I loved it. It takes a bit of being candid to be able to tell somebody like, well, I really liked everything, but I thought your pacing in the third scene was pretty slow.
When I took creative writing in college, one of the things that we talked about was that it's difficult to find good critics initially. We can all find people that, like mom and dad, who always tell you that everything you do is wonderful.
Right.
Hopefully. And you can also find the assholes that will sit there and they will just critique everything. I mean, we've all been to movies with people and all they do is take the movie apart. They look for all the flaws.
Right.
If you can find people who will tell you what they liked and what they didn't like, and more importantly, why, hey, that was a really fun adventure. I really liked that set piece at the end where we had the cool fight with the big boss, or, you know what, I had a good time, but I was having a tough time finding out all the clues. That tells you what's good and what's bad.
Yeah. And I think that there is a place for the mom and dad like advice early on when you're still like, shaky legged and getting up to, like trying to build up your confidence as a GM, running for friends who are like, no, it was great. It was great. I had a good time. Like that's helpful. There's a next phase of your GMing career where you're like, okay, cool. I seem to be a GM that people like to play with, but how can I be a better GM? And it's that point where you need people who can really give you good critique, because that's not the people you want to be like, no, it's great. Everything you do is wonderful. We love it, right? You really want somebody who's like, yeah, I find all your dialogue to be pretty much the same. And then not fall apart when you hear it, right? And be like, cool, all right, I guess I have to work on dialogue, right? And then like go out. So anyway, that's, I think that's important and tricky, right? It's tricky to find people who are like that.
I've never shown my parents anything I've ever written professionally or for school, ever. My brother-in-law, who passed away a couple years ago, was the one who I'd show everything to, because either as a GM, because he was also the person who taught me how to role-playing game, he would tell me what was good and what was bad and where things were falling apart and where they were straight, what to focus more on. So find those people, and they're probably in your game group.
One of the things I love about Chris is it was a double-edged sword with early Chris. Later Chris has been much more skilled at this. Early Chris was very candid, not always soft. Like he wasn't wrong, but you didn't always feel good when you heard it. He's much better at that now, right? Like he's much better at do better, right?
Do better.
Right. I mean, but it was what won me over to him, right? So that's how I, but when he said it, I was, luckily it was by email, because when he said it, I was like, fuck you, Chris. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. And then I calmed down and I read it and I was like, nope, this is a shitty intro. Like, exactly delete the whole thing and start over. He wasn't wrong. I was pissed, right? We can get into talking about critique as a skill later, but the point is, improving your skills is definitely a way to build confidence. Another way to build confidence is to build up your self-awareness, right? Learning to be mindful and present in the moment when you're running a game, and be in the middle of a game and be able to see yourself and be like, what am I doing here that's good? What am I doing here that's not working, right? It's a hard skill to pick up. We joke on Pandas that there's 8 things a GM is doing at all times. Being mindful is just one more ball you got to throw into the mix to juggle while you're in the middle of a session. That's definitely tricky. But the more that we can truly see who we are and what we have to offer, the sooner we will draw on what we're good at and then go and find places to improve. Right? That's really the key to being mindful, is that being able to see and be like, well, I'm stumbling through this scene, and go back later and be like, what is it about the scene that tripped me up? So, and again, we talked about this before, right? So if you can draw upon external critique or validation along the way from people who've played your games, it can kind of help you with your own self-awareness. Like if after a game, and I've done this with, I think, pretty much everyone in the past, where I'll be like, oh, I'm glad you guys had a good time. I personally felt really rocky during this scene. And sometimes people will be like, yeah, I saw you struggling with it, so I just kind of went with the scene. Or they'll be like, oh, I didn't see it at all. I thought it went rather smooth. And that helps, from an internal perspective, helps you kind of calibrate, oh, they saw it too. Okay, so I definitely need to work on it. Or if they didn't see it, it's not that it wasn't true. It's just that I must have been good. I must have had enough skills to kind of keep that part covered up. Right.
Yeah. Players don't often see how far things go off the rails, because regardless of how open-minded we are about a storyline, we have an idea in our mind of where we think the plot's going to go. And when it falls apart and they do 10 different things and they spend half an hour arguing over what to name the horse, you feel like things went crazy, and you're going to find out that argument was their favorite part of the adventure that night, because they got to role play a lot. It's always fun to see that sort of thing.
Yeah, you don't know what they're going to like. I mean, there are times where I will just say to the players, wow, I did not expect that to go the way it went. That's what happened in Forbidden Lands this week. I rolled the 4 damage fear and realized that I had broken the entire party. And I was like, all right, well, that wasn't what I thought was going to happen. We're going to have to keep going from here. But I just said it right out to the players. I was like, I'm a little thrown off. Let's figure out how we're going to keep this scene going. All right, so cool. So that's becoming self-aware. What else, Jer?
Well, sorry, that just caught me off guard. We also have to set our own expectations. Often our fears of running a game are going to come from the expectations that we often imply. We think we have to have full rules knowledge, and you don't. We think we have to have a collection of interesting voices to use. You don't. Some players find that annoying. And there's a big group of ego out in the gaming community that makes people think they have to write their own adventures.
Oh, man,
you do not have to, and there's nothing wrong with using existing worlds, existing adventures, existing stories.
Absolutely.
As long as you and your players are having fun, you are not a bad GM. You're not an inferior GM, and they're not better GMs for running their own stuff.
That was my number one bullshit. For the longest time was I got to write my own shit. No published adventures. I only all my shit is handcrafted, right?
Yeah. My most successful campaign was canned material.
Yeah. I mean, look, I've had in recent times, I have had a ton of fun using published adventures. We're running Forbidden Lands with published material. We're running DCC with published material. I'm writing my own stuff for icons, but I ran all of Tales from the Loop with modified material. Like I used the core material that they had and just modified it up a little. Like I used to be really stuck on that. Like I put that in this list because that was my bullshit. Like that was a huge expectation I had falsely set for myself.
I see it all the time when you see somebody say things like, what's your favorite published, D&D campaign world? And you'll get some people like Dark Sun and some people like Forgotten Realms. You get the one guy that, oh, I've been playing for 40 years and I've never run in a published campaign world.
Oh, that was me. I was that snob. Yeah. I wrote an article. I wrote an article on Gnome Stew about why I didn't like published adventures. And I think a year or two ago, I went back and wrote one about why I like published adventures. Like, like that's, I mean, to be fair, I admitted in the second article, I was like, I was wrong. Like, it's okay. Like,
I was.
No, I was just wrong. Like, it's fine. So the thing about expectations,
I will say that doesn't mean that all published adventures are good.
No.
Some of them suck.
No. Some published adventures suck. Some published adventures are decent, and you have to go fix. Like you have to go in and tweak a few things to tighten it up. That's okay. Okay. Yep. So. The thing about expectations is we have the ability to set our own expectations, right? We don't have to feel put upon by the outside world. Don't read, you don't have to read what some Twitter DM says about, real DMing and things like I see it from time to time, and I don't think it's a huge problem, but like sometimes you see people who are like, I'm no Matt Mercer, I can't make up all these voices. Well, it's okay. Like Matt Mercer's a fucking professional. Like I can't make up those voices either. And it hasn't impeded my 40 years of gaming at all. And it doesn't diminish what Matt does. What Matt does is very highly entertaining and, he's an awesome GM. But so we sometimes fall prey to listening to outside voices for setting expectations. So, it is okay to be able to say things, especially if you're setting expectations for the group that you're playing with. Like you can say like, I'm going to run this, but I'm still mastering the rules. So I'm definitely going to be looking shit up while we're playing. You can simply say like, I don't do voices. I don't really do voices. I have like a little bit of voice stuff, but not a lot. You can tell people that you're running a published adventure. Like, hey, this is what I'm running. It's this adventure. Like there's nothing wrong with that stuff. And if people have their own desires, like, oh, I really don't want to, I don't know if anyone would object to those things. I think if you're playing with people and they're like, I don't want to play with you because of any of those things, maybe you shouldn't be playing with them. Yeah. But I guess the point is like, people will understand if you set expectations. It's when you go on assumptions is when you really like fuck yourself up.
And that's why you have to set your own expectations. Don't imply them. Just set the expectations where you're going to be. Tell the people what you're going to do. Put them in places where our confidence is going to be high. I'm going to run this adventure, but I don't really know the spell rules very well. So that we're going to stumble over that, and we might make some mistakes. But you know what? I've got a really good idea for stories. That's where we're going to go. And do something like that.
And if it turns out you don't wind up messing around with the rules that much, then you come out of it like, well, I guess I was better off than I thought I was.
Yeah.
Which also is confidence boosting. All right. Lastly, one more thing you can do to raise up your confidence is get more experience. Right. This is the Shia LaBeouf. Just do it. Right. Yeah. The more we run, the more our abilities will improve. The more good games we wind up having. Right. It's a law of averages. Look, if you run enough games, eventually you start to run good games. Like eventually, like you will improve. All of this stuff, we say it on Pandas and we say it here as well. All of this stuff is skills. You do it enough times, you will get better at it. So the more you do this, the better your skills improve. The more good games you have, the better understanding of your limits, right? You'll know you'll know what to run And you'll be really good at conveying expectations with your players so that you can kind of set their expectations for what kind of experience they're going to have. All of that's going to build up your confidence.
And we live in the golden age now because there are so many games out there now that have so much online support for them. If you're not good at coming up with ideas, you can get them from somewhere even better than that. I know of 2 GMs myself right now who are doing a lot of GMing work, and both of them got started on one-page adventures. Mm-hmm. They ran Love and Justice. They ran Lasers and Feelings. They ran One Last Job, that sort of thing. Games you can play quickly. And while the implication there is that, these are just beer and pretzels games, that takes the pressure off the GM when they're starting to run for the first time.
Absolutely.
And the idea is, but what they do is they end up getting really good GMing skills from doing that. And then all of a sudden, wow, I had a great time doing that. And the next thing you know, they're running, Savage Worlds or Fate or Tales from the Loop. And it could be really contagious.
Yeah, so absolutely.
All of these things are going to contribute to our self-assessment.
Exactly. And all of this is going to boost your confidence. Now, we got to flip it around and talk about confidence killers.
Yeah. Because as time goes on, confidence in a GM can change. Overall, we want to see it consistently grow, but there are going to be times when our confidence drops. And in general, our confidence drops when we get outside of our comfort zone.
Right. So all GMs have a comfort zone, whether you know it or not. And again, this goes to self-assessment and being mindful. All GMs have a comfort zone. They're the things that we have the most experience about. We have the largest sense of comfort about them, right? Because it could be a particular game. It could be a type of genre, whatever it is, we have a comfort zone, a style of GMing, etc. When we do something that's outside that comfort zone, right, our confidence drops, right? We just know we're not in that comfortable place. So our self-assessment starts to drop. And depending on how far out of your comfort zone you go, will determine how much of a hit your confidence will take.
There are going to be numerous things that are going to push you outside your comfort zone. For example?
Changing systems, right? Like a lot of, there are people who just are still playing AD&D, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's their comfort zone. They mastered the shit out of that game. They don't want to go master anything else. Running outside your favorite genre is another one. There are people who just they want to run fantasy. They don't want to run, crime dramas or noir or whatever. Running for strangers, that was a big one for me. I had we'll talk about it in the second half, but I had a lot of problems transitioning to running convention games because I'm not as confident running for strangers. And also running in public spaces is another one, right? That can be a hurdle. And lastly, which I think is very timely, is running online. Online adds a whole different set of skills and things you need to kind of be able to do. And that can also push us out of our comfort zones. Like totally comfortable running DCC, but it was tough after lockdown, the first game or two. And in fact, the thing I did was I set our expectations really low. Let's just get through an encounter or two. We'll call that a win. Over time, my confidence is growing and I'm getting better as my skill in using Roll20 is improving. That is definitely a place of Roll20 was not in my comfort zone. It's still not completely in my comfort zone, but I'm feeling better. It's getting closer. Okay. What's another way? There is a guaranteed other way to lose confidence. What is it, Jer?
And that is bad experiences. Because every GM is going to have bad sessions. Every GM feels like a failure when they have one, and every GM feels like they're never going to be a good GM again. When you have GM for a long time, you're going to learn that you run more good ones than bad ones. And you'll be able to shake off the bad sessions easier. But when your sample size of games you run is small, it may look to you like you're not a good GM, and that's when your confidence is going to take a hit.
Yeah, when you're grizzled, like Jerry and I primarily GM, when you're grizzled like Jerry and I, if I have a bad session now, I'm that's a statistical anomaly. Against my average of games, a bad session is like, a 0.05% or something, whatever. No big deal. We'll be fine. But if you've run 4 sessions and one of them is bad, like you don't have the statistics to give you that comfort. And every GM will tell you like, oh, no, you're going to have bad sessions. But the next session after it is like sometimes the hardest session, like the get back on the horse session. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard and necessary, right?
That's why you got to do it as quickly as possible. You have a bad session, go do something, go run something, go have some fun, even if it's just to play a silly game of beer and pretzels,
Yeah, exactly.
My baby or whatever it is.
Yep, I agree. Or go right back to your comfort zone, right? So if you had a bad session that was outside of your comfort zone, go run something right in your comfort zone, and take that good hit, right? And just be like, yes, okay, yes, I had trouble running that noir game, but I'm still rocking it, here in Westerns. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the first half of our show. Let's check in with the chat room and we'll see what they have to say. But first, Bob, you tell us about another show on the Misdirected Mark Network.
She's a Super Geek. She's a Super Geek is an Emmy-nominated actual play RPG podcast highlighting women as GMs. Join them every other Tuesday for lots of different RPGs and guests. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So what's going on in the chat room for life?
So, excuse me. Senda actually pointed out that she got over a bunch of the confidence problems by sticking a mic in front of her face and giving herself no choice.
Mm-hmm.
That's one way to do it. Just jump into the deep end of the pool and be like, all right, this is it.
When I was in college, I was terrified. By my junior year, I was terrified to speak in public. I thought it was just the worst thing ever. And a number of my professors conspired against me. And in 1 month, I had to give 4 public talks.
Yeah.
In like 4 different classes. One of them on what was called Scholars Day, which is like this campus-wide thing. One to the American Chemical Society. One for a class, and I forget what the 4th one was, but they all ganged up. I had to do them within 4 weeks, one every week. After that 4 weeks, I never had a problem speaking in public again. Mm-hmm. But it was like a trial by fire. Like I thought I was going to die the first day, and then I lived. And then the second one, I was like, okay, I can do this. I lived through one. I can do this next one. And by the 3rd one, I was like, you know what? I got 2 of these behind me. By the 4th one, I was like, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be speaking to you for today. And I just rolled right into it. But terrifying.
I have to do presentations in class. I still teach classes several times a year. And I often have to give keynote speeches and things like that for some of the professional meetings that we attend and so on. And I still have trouble getting started. The opening, trying to get the feel of the room, getting them on your side. Once I'm in 7 sentences, I'm on a roll. And then GM Jerry comes out in a professional manner where you're talking, hand gestures.
Yep.
And I've had to teach myself things like one of the things I've learned is don't stand behind the podium.
Me too.
If I'm teaching a class, I had to do a class for some professional engineers, and the guy that was in front of me stood there and pointed at slides, and I got up there, and I was very nervous because these are all guys with more education than I have. And I started talking, and I could see them all looking at me. I just walked into the crowd and just kept talking really loudly so I didn't need the mic. And all of a sudden, I was on a roll. But sometimes you just have to do it.
Yeah.
Just get started. Don't worry about how you stumble over it. They're not going to remember the beginning.
So
they're going to remember the ending.
I have a silly trick that I do. So I saw Evil John mention this, that every time he GMs, he still gets anxious right before that.
Yeah.
I think that's perfectly normal, right? I always get a little excited before I'm going to run a game, especially when it's new or something like that. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to public speaking, I'm always a little nervous the hour before I'm going to give a talk. But my one little psychological trick that I do that works for me is I always go into the room before everyone else, because then psychologically you are coming to me right? I'm not coming to you. And essentially, in Star Wars terms, like I have the high ground, right? So, and I do this for conventions too. I will go and set up my game if I can, like if the space is clear. I will set up my game 5 minutes, 10 minutes before the time when it's supposed to start, so that when you come to the table, I'm sitting I'm sitting at the GM spot. I'm welcoming you, right? I'm making some small talk with you. My stuff is laid out, right? I'm not frantically trying to put stuff together. I've laid out my stuff. I'm in control.
Yep. Control is definitely peace.
You've come to me, therefore I'm the GM. Yeah, I don't know.
Sometimes you just got to give yourself an internal pep talk. I sometimes recite, when I'm trying to get myself, you've been chosen to defend the frontier against Zur and the Conan Armada. Get yourself going, pep yourself up, walk out there. But I think getting there early and definitely getting prepped ahead of time makes a difference. If you're if you've got nervous GM confidence, take the time to prep before you start, because one of the things that will sap your confidence is if you're busy trying to set up dice and find things and look around for stuff when you're trying to GM. It makes you feel like, even though you have things under control, it makes you feel like you don't. And that'll take your confidence away. So a little prep time makes a big difference.
Yeah. I'm looking at the chat rooms making a joke about me needing to be in control. But here's the thing, right? This is the thing I know about myself from enough mindfulness and therapy, right? I'm actually a complete mess of anxieties, right? Very few people will see the total amount of anxiety that I carry. The way I function is by being in control of stuff, right? That's how I actually move through life. If I'm not in control of stuff, if my personal life goes out of whack, if my systems that kind of keep things in control go out of whack, like I fall apart quick, right? Like which is why I needed some adjustment when we went into lockdown, because some of the things that I, did for maintaining control weren't available. And that's, that was a shock to my system. And I had to quickly, put into place other things to compensate for that. But that's kind of why, my desk looks like no one works at it, right? Control. So yeah, for me, having the feeling that I'm in control when I go to run a con game is really important for me, because it helps boost my confidence. If I show up at the table and I'm missing something, or I'm 5 minutes late and I'm trying to hand out shit and get my stuff set up, I don't feel confident. All right. I don't feel confident because I don't think I look confident. But if my shit is all laid out, my GMing setup is kind of set up the way I like it, and you're coming to the table 5 minutes early and I'm already there welcoming you and greeting you, and I'm in a place of calm. I'm under control. I'm calm. There's my confidence, right? My confidence is intact. So it is really about knowing what things you need to do to bolster your confidence, right? To fortify it. Because that shit, if I lose something, I have trouble losing things, right? Because I can't possibly imagine that I lost something.
Yeah.
I don't lose shit. Sometimes I put things down and I can't find it for a little bit and then find it, but I don't lose things. I have had the same pen for almost 20 years, right? No, it's over 20 years. I have the same pen. Never lost it. One time I dropped it in a restaurant, realized it shortly after, and nearly had a panic attack. Until I went back and found it. I found it under a table and calmed down, but I nearly lost my shit because for 20, I think it was 19 years at that point, that pen, I had it, never lost it.
Yep.
So anyway, again, can't talk about this stuff without diving into your own psychology.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit.
All right.
All right. So any other comments?
I think we're covered for now.
Okay, cool.
Let's get back into it.
Yeah. We've been talking about GM confidence. We're going to get more personal since I already opened up the floodgates on that, and do some roundtable questions. And we'll start with this one. How would you describe your level of GM confidence? Where are you the most confident, aka your comfort zone, and where are you the least confident? Jared.
Well, I'm most confident as a GM. I'm confident in games where I know the genre and I have at least a passing knowledge of the rules. But give me a quick description of the mechanics and the setting, and let's go. I do a lot of improv GMing in my own games. I do a lot of sandboxy things. I've had adventures where the players didn't quite see where the hook was, and 6 weeks later, they still haven't made it to the hook. So I like that, and system mastery is less important for me at the start of a game. I want to be able to tell, I want to know the story, I want to know the plot, and I want to know where we're going to go with it. I used to be intimidated with games with a lot of splat books, and I still like to run games like that for strangers because I'm worried about the min-maxers breaking the game just because they can. I'll be honest, I know there's a lot of people cramping up. I enjoyed running Pathfinder. I still enjoy Pathfinder, but people have talked to me about it. I run it core +1, and I throw out 2/3 of the feats. We're going to run the game. We're not going to run the character builders. But that's okay. That's the kind of game I run. I let people know ahead of time. I have trouble running the games that have a lot of the books on tops of books on tops of books. I also have had trouble running Fate lately because I'm a probability guy, and I cannot grok the probability in Fate and how to balance encounters. And until I know that I can't run Fate, because I have no idea what's difficult, what's not, and how to balance things. As both a player and a GM, I like to know what the odds are and where I stand competence-wise and how the players feel confidence-wise. Are we the equivalent of a D&D? Like, if you're playing Savage Worlds, your starting character is the equivalent of like a 4th level D&D character, and you know that going into if you're running Torg, your character is somewhere below the level of a 0-level character in D&D. And you need to know that. You need to know that your character's survivability is slim. I don't know where that is in Fate. And there are other games like that I don't know where to stand. That's where my confidence falls apart, is when I don't understand the probability of the game. I'm still mathematical because part engineer. But that's how I feel, though. Just go in and have a good time, and I don't worry as much about the rules until we get in a couple adventures. Bob?
Yeah, so my confidence level for GMing is probably right around the middle right now. I haven't run an actual campaign in about, looking back now, I just double-checked something because I thought it was 10 years. It's actually been around 9 years. And I've run a couple of one-shots since, maybe like 5+ years ago. I ran a couple of one-shots at, I think they were both at Gen Con, like a year apart from each other.
Woof.
Yeah, it's been a while. But I am most comfortable running pre-made material for my home peeps. Like the people that I'm comfortable around at home, pre-made stuff, so I'm not making my own stuff up and trying to create. I use the stuff that's provided to me, and I can do that. I feel comfortable doing that. I am least confident running for strangers or trying to make up my own stuff. That's when I start to fall apart. I haven't had a ton of success trying to do my own thing as a game master. But it also has been a long time since I've tried. My last campaign that I ran didn't go for more than 3 or 4 sessions, I don't think. I tried to run a Dresden Files game using the True 20 rules.
Oh, yeah.
And I was, like making stuff up, and it didn't really fly very far. Prior to that, I ran a year-plus long 4th edition game using the pre-made material that WotC put out, and we had a ball with that. That was tons of fun.
Not all of them were good.
Not all of them were good.
You ran them fine.
But we had fun while we were playing, and even the ones that weren't good, we still ended up having fun, either in the moment with the making fun of how bad it was. Oh, I hit the mic. We either made fun of how bad it was, or we enjoyed bits about it as we were playing. But yeah, I had a lot of fun running that game because everybody was having fun playing that game. So that worked great. But yeah, that's where I sit. It's been forever though. I haven't run anything in a long time.
Yeah. So my my confidence level. So in general, I'm pretty confident about. I'm pretty confident now about running games. Some of that is true confidence. Like some of that's like, no, I know, like I've run enough games. I'm comfortable running stuff. Some of that is gun to my head, right? You can't be the guy who gets on the mics and talks about GMing twice a week and not be able to get, behind the screen and run some shit. So,
yeah.
So I've had to times like live with that as well. I am definitely more comfortable when running for friends. I think I don't know if it's a rapport thing, because I saw Schmitty say that Schmitty's actually more comfortable running for strangers, which I think is really interesting. I'm more comfortable running for friends because I think that I have a pretty good expectation for my friends, so I kind of know what to run. Where if I'm running for strangers, like I really don't know what they're expecting. Like I can kind of tell you what to expect, but and there's a little added pressure, right? I'm also a game designer, podcaster and stuff like that. So my margin for running shitty games at a con is really low. I can run shitty games for friends, but if I tank a game or two at a con, right, then it's like, feck you own, right? Like this guy doesn't even know what he's talking about, right? Like his games suck. So there's like a little added pressure to that. So for me, running for strangers at a con is always more stressful. So I do prep myself differently than running for friends. With friends, I'm very much more like, fuck it, you know who I am. Like we're good. I am definitely more comfortable with less rules than more rules. I know I have a limit to how much system I can master before the system gets away from me. So I tend to pick my games in a place where, in a sweet spot of where they're not completely loosey-goosey, right? Like they don't lack rules, but they don't have so many rules that I can't keep them all in my head. And I know roughly where that is. I can't specifically tell you like some quantitative number, but, I can tell you things like the Mutant Year Zero engine, right? The one that Free League uses. That's a really good fit for me. I'm reading the Star Trek Adventures 2D20 system. That implementation seems like it'll be a good fit for me. Fate is a good fit for me. So Jerry, sometime we can sit around and talk about Fate. But then when we get into Pathfinder, well, Pathfinder has just the D20 core and I have a pretty good grasp of that. Where I lose it is like spells. All right. I fucking hate spells, right? Spells are just rule packages that I haven't memorized. Right.
Yeah.
And so like, I know that I will run, low level adventures, no problem, and shit can games when you get to higher level adventures. The reason I keep running DCC is that DCC goes into, NPCs don't have to use the same rules for magic that the PCs do. Those tables are all for the PCs. Like all those tables you have to roll on to cast spells. On the GM side, it's like, no, this thing casts lightning bolt like once every 3 turns, 46 damage.
Boom. There you go.
That's like that's actually one of the toughest things I've had to deal with as a player for 5th edition, is that 5th edition does the same thing now. That like if you're like 7th level and you encounter a guardsman with a spear, he's not going to do 1d6 damage plus his strength. He's going to do like 5d6 damage with that spear.
Oh, yeah, so scalable opponents.
And so you don't really know what you're up against until you actually go into it. And it took my mind a little while as a player to grok that, because I was like, oh, it's a guy with a spear. I've got a rapier. Okay, I'm doing 1d6 damage every turn. No, he's doing 5d6.
Right.
Yeah. So you need to be able to balance that out, and that's cool. I like the fact that games do that.
I do have some genres that I'm more comfortable in than not. Modern, crime are genres I'm very comfortable with. Supers is another one I'm really comfortable with. I am less comfortable with fantasy, although ironically I run a shit ton of fantasy stuff. Where I'm way more comfortable with sci-fi. Like I'm way more comfortable with sci-fi than fantasy. I'm just happen to be running a lot of sci-fi or a lot of fantasy right now. Place where I'm not comfortable. Like I am not well versed in Lovecraft. Like I have read a good number of Lovecraft stories, but like I'm not the kind of person who can do like a Trail of Cthulhu, Call of Cthulhu game. Like I don't know enough Lovecraft knowledge, references, genre tropes to pull that off. Like I appreciate it. I can play in it. But it's not a game like you won't see me running a Call of Cthulhu game because I just don't grok it. The times I've tried running, and I think I remember running one for Bob. It was like an espionage mythos style game. Like it was not my. I leaned heavily on running the espionage part and less on the mythos part to get by.
I feel like you would do fine if you had a short cheat sheet of mythos trope bullet points, and then just lean into those things here and there, and I think you'd be fine.
I think I could one-shot it. I don't know if I could campaign it.
As somebody who's played a lot of Cthulhu lately, and I mean, I go to a private convention where all we play is Cthulhu horror adventures. There's really not a lot of actual Lovecraft in most of the Call of Cthulhu, because I mean, if you've read the Lovecraft books, they're all mood and nothing happens in a lot of them.
Yes.
And so which is fine. It's part of what they said. So Call of Cthulhu is, I think again, this is self-defeating expectations. I think Call of Cthulhu is a game that, unless you're playing with a bunch of diehard grognards, you can pretty much, if you've got the tropes of horror down, you can make up whatever creatures or monsters you want.
That might be
needs to know it's there.
That might be the other thing. I don't actually have a good grasp on horror because it's not a genre I really like watching. Like I don't watch horror movies and that kind of thing. And I also will say this, so wait for the people to start screaming. Like I don't like the BRP system. Like I have never enjoyed that system. I think they've done a good job by 7th edition of patching the shit I really didn't like about it so that it's more palatable. Because we're playing that game with Chris, and I'm like, these rules are okay. Like, I have some luck points. I can push a roll. That's cool. Those are recent additions, right? Like, that's not how that game started. And I've never been enamored. First of all, I just, for some reason, dislike percentile roll under systems a bunch. I don't like the math on them, I think is what it is. But I have it's my own personal thing about it.
I actually don't like BRP for most. I think that 7th edition Cthulhu did a good job of making a game that fits that particular genre well.
Yeah.
Because it's a game where, because to be honest, you don't really, like, our game is unusual because we're playing a Western game. So things like gunfighting and stuff like that actually matter. But in most Call of Cthulhu games, you can get by completely with, like, what's your gun combat skill? 5. That's fine, because a gun's not going to help you anyway, except maybe to take your own life.
Right.
You know?
So for me, right, like Trail of Cthulhu is way more enticing because I love Gumshoe, right? So if somebody was like, "Oh, I'm gonna run a Trail of Cthulhu game," I'd be like, "I'm all up in your shit." Like, I will go play Trail of Cthulhu because I like how it does mysteries, right? Which I think is the bulk of what Call of Cthulhu is like solving mysteries and trying to stop something bad from happening. I'm all up on that. And I just think that Trail probably does it better.
I think part of the problem with BRP is that oftentimes people play, and we've seen this lately, people try to find a way to play the skills they've got instead of just playing the character because the way the skill points work. It's like I want to use persuasion on this. Well, you're not really doing persuasion. You're doing that kind of thing. But I think for the most part, it's not bad. Well, I mean, I'll tell you, you want to play messed up BRP? I own and have GM'd ElfQuest. Try running BRP in ElfQuest, which was the game's. It doesn't work at all. Uh, so, all right.
Okay.
Cool.
Let's go on to question.
Yeah.
Question 2.
Yeah. All right. So here's the next one. Have you ever had a crisis of GMing confidence? And if you did, how'd you get out of it?
I totally did.
Phil?
I totally did, and it was Chris. No, what happened was when Chris joined our group, I started watching Chris improv games. And back when Chris joined the group, I didn't improv GM at all. Like I was very much a traditional prep GM. I was efficient with my prep because by that point, by the time I met Chris, I had written Never Unprepared. So I had actually spent a great deal of time about thinking about how to get prep to be more efficient. But I didn't improv stuff. I didn't show up to games with a Post-it note and run things or whatever. So when I met Chris, like I was pretty shook up at my own skills. Like because I really liked indie games. Indie games have a large component of, running ad hoc and improv style. And I couldn't do it at first. And I was like, I felt like a very bad GM, right? Like I did not feel like a good GM when it started. But I actually drew upon that story from college, right? I figured the best way to do it was to go through it. So I think if I remember correctly, I signed myself up at some small convention to run some improv game and made myself learn the system. I think I ran it for friends and then I took it to a con and ran it and lived. And then from there, I worked on honing skills. But in order to get comfortable with improv GMing, I used to dissect all of Chris's GMing. Like we would be playing Dungeon World, or I think at first it was Numenera. And I'd be like watching him and afterwards I'd be like, okay. I'm like, that second scene, like you made that scene up, right? Like that wasn't part of the thing, right? And he'd be like, well, I had this piece, but like I kind of just played off the rest of it. I'm like, all right, cool. All right. Mm-hmm. And I built my improv GMing style off of Chris's. And then after I was able to do it long enough, then I started to kind of refine it into my own GMing style. But I was definitely I was totally intimidated about running improv stuff. And I was totally intimidated by improv GMs for some time until I set out to actually fix it, to learn the craft. How about you, Bob?
Yeah, I absolutely had a crisis. I tried running a D20 Modern / D20 Future game during the D20 Glut, and I bombed so spectacularly at that game. It was horrible. I mean, horrible to the nth degree. It was just, I did everything that a GM can do wrong in a game. I did them all in that. I did.
I'm trying to remember which D20 Modern game was
that was the one I called After Earth, where I patterned it after Titan AE, where the aliens came and they burned the planet.
All right. So wait. I gotta inject some stuff. I was a player in this game. There were a lot of things you did that were good. There were definitely things you did wrong.
Yeah, the vast majority of it was bad. How much player agency was there, Phil? None. I was trying to tell a story, and you guys were along for the ride, and I didn't realize
that part's true. that part's. I mean,
it was horrible.
I had fun playing it. My biggest critique was there was this thing you would do, and it happened a couple times where you would have quickly thrown together the game the night before or whatever. But you would come and tell us that, right? You'd sit down at the table, you'd be like, oh man, I just threw this thing together a half hour ago. I hope it goes okay. And I'm like, don't tell us that.
Never let them see how the sausage is made.
Just start running it. If it's not okay, we'll all survive. Yeah. But if it's good, all right. So that I know why the game didn't work for you, and you're not wrong. There were definitely some problems.
There was a lot of problems.
I don't think it was the disaster. I I don't think it was the disaster you thought it was, but definitely, if I can say this now in a place of critique and a place from love, prepping games was not your strong suit.
No.
And you did much better when we got to 4th edition and you were like, I'm running all this shit published. And we were all like, okay.
Yeah.
Like, and then it was great. So.
Yeah. And honestly, there were a couple of times where I winged it and I didn't say anything and I pulled it off.
Yeah.
Those were rare, but they actually happened. But I didn't get as much confidence out of them as I should have because as a whole, it was kind of a train wreck. But the important thing is I had a huge crisis of confidence as a GM, and I got out of it. Because subsequent to that, I decided to throw my hat into the ring again, and I don't remember what really just like spurred me into it. But I decided I'm going to run a 4E game, and you guys are like, let's do 4E, and I jumped into it, and we had a ball. So, you know, I got out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. Back in those days, like that was not a forgiving group.
We were a little bit.
We were militant and not kind to each other.
Yeah.
I mean.
We could have been nicer.
We could have been nicer, right? We were definitely like it was not our best of times, right?
Yeah.
Like it is definitely not our best of times.
How long ago was this?
10 plus
4th
years.
edition time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about you, Jerry?
Well, I'm going to change my answer because I thought more and more about it. I, for a while, was a GM in college where I ran a lot of superhero games. And I mean, I was running 4 or 5 days a week running games. We had no social life outside of that, but that's what we did. And we had a good time playing it, both Marvel and Vigilantes. So when I got out of college and started running games for a different group of people, and especially when I moved to Buffalo, I had a lot of GMing confidence trying to run superhero games because the people I was running for I didn't have the same genre ideas that they did. Their concept of superheroes was grimdark and the Punisher and Batman and that sort of thing. Where I grew up with the 4-color comics and the X-Men and things like that, and I had a lot of confidence problems. I ran several games that I ran one session, I was done. I think I've mentioned a couple of times. I have a group of players that I cannot run any game where they play kids or teenagers or anything, because anytime we start to get into that plot, they immediately try to make it as adult as possible, and it doesn't work. And that makes me feel bad when I'm doing that. I get out of the game, I'm like, I don't want to run that game again. And it's not their fault. It's just, I had a lack of confidence. Now, since then, I've run a couple of superhero games that I've enjoyed, but it was a lot of trying to figure out learning to know the people more, and not letting 3 or 4 spurned attempts at running Masks or Marvel or V&V or any of those games, and have them fumble that badly. You just have to get up and move on. I was lucky enough growing up that I had some really shitty GMs right from the get-go that made it very obvious a couple of things that I just never want to do, and I've done them. And I always feel bad about them. I had the GM with the super, super, super competent GM NPC. I had the GM who had a railroad adventure. No matter what you did, you had to follow that. I had the GM who made you sit back and watch everybody else do things. I had the GM who loved to take away all the characters' powers on a any game. The GM who likes to run an adventure where magic doesn't work for the entire adventure, so your cleric and your wizard.
In order to play in this game, you will have to defeat my 7 past GMs.
Exactly. Yep. And I mean, it got to the point where we actually had the Topolsky rule and the Sturman rule, named after 2 of our GMs. We had the GM who was out to kill the party, where you literally rolled up.
Gonna win.
You rolled up a character. Yep. You rolled up your character, and then while you were playing that character, you rolled up the next one because the average character lifespan was about 2 to 2.5 weeks. And going through all that, and I've done all of those things. And I feel like crap. You catch yourself doing them and you're like, ah. And what you have to do is, first of all, apologize to the group, because half the time they don't realize it, but they might be suffering. They might be like, yeah, I'm not having guys, I'm sorry. I just did this. And I let's take 5 and come back. We're going to roll everything back and we're going to start over again. Everybody has a good time. But yeah, it's been bad and it's been good. It's been much better. But those are the few and far between games, they're not the ones that I remember. So, so that's what we have.
All right. One more question, because I feel this segment has gone long, right? According to the time. Am I looking? So we'll try to answer this one briefly, and then we'll jump to the conversation corner and blow out of this episode. It's question 3. What techniques do you use or have in order to maintain your GM confidence? Somehow I wound up at the top of the list, which is fine. I'll do it really quick. If I am really unsure, I will test drive a game. So if it's like a convention game, I will get people at home to play the game once so I can kind of see how it shakes out. I over prep. That is my number one way to combat my lack of confidence at any one point. Over prep. I'm okay with it. I understand what it is when I do it. And I will eventually, as my confidence goes up, my prep goes down. I've noticed that those are inversely proportional. So the less confident I am about a game, a group, or whatever, the more I will over prep it. Not that you will see the over prep. I will just do it in the background. And part of that over prep includes cheat sheets, right? The thing I'm always terrified about is freezing up, right? Freezing up and not knowing what to do next. So if my prep is all in bullet points, so it's easy to follow, and I've got cheat sheets for all the important rules that I need, my confidence is in a much better place.
Fair.
So, Babbo.
So technically, I haven't consciously done anything to raise or maintain my GM confidence. When I finally stopped running and said, you know what, I'm not really super good at this GM thing. I'm just going to not do it anymore. I'm just going to play. So I walked away from GMing, and I've been just kind of just playing games ever since. But as a coincidental fact, through my efforts as an editor and a proofreader, I have read a metric shit ton of GM advice articles and books. And quite a few of those were read or written by Phil, who I happen to play with. So all of that combined, playing a game with Phil and Chris is those games are like master classes in how to GM. It's just it's like, it's not the 101. It's not the entry level class. That's like the 401, whatever. So I have absorbed a bunch of stuff just by osmosis. So one of these days I'm going to throw my head into the GM ring again, and I'm going to throw something out and do a one shot with some people. And I'm fairly confident that I'll be able to pull it off because I've learned a lot in the interim. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're a lot different than.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you're a different person than you were the last time you GM'd. We're a different group of people.
Yep.
I think the game groups we are in now are much kinder. I think the anger of our youth has boiled off. Like, I think supportive and kind are the ways that I would think about the people that we play with now.
Yeah.
And I also think it's because you play a lot of story games now, Bob.
That's
so
true too.
I've watched you start with characters. I've watched you bring characters into games we're already playing. I've watched you replace characters with other characters, and I've watched how you build that character right into whatever's going on. And while that is a player skill, that's also a major GMing skill that you're just applying to being a player.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't think there's going to be a problem with that. It's something pretty straightforward on your part. I think you're going to be a good GM because I've seen what you do when you. We're going to do a quick side. When you joined our D&D 5e game, and we're like, okay, we're in the middle. We're at like episode 16 of a game, and you're coming in for the first time just before like one of the big boss stories, and within 5 minutes. we had so much about how you fit into the story with our group, the genre of the world and the mythos of the world and everything else. And that's all stuff that GMs do all the time. And you just built on it organically. And it was a lot of fun. And we were like, yep, we're not going to have a question as to why you're here or what you're doing. It all fit. Let's just roll with it. Now let's go get our asses kicked. So, yeah.
Yeah, one day. What about you, Jerry?
One day. My big advice is run for good players. Hands down, good players will restore your confidence and get you through the times when you feel out of sorts. Good players have the patience to deal with your stumbling blocks. They know you, or at least even if they don't know you personally, if a good player will recognize a GM who is trying and just having difficulty, and they'll just keep pushing it forward. They'll realize that they're there to have a fun time. They're going to work with you to achieve that despite your foils. And good players will often do some of the heavy lifting. When I first started running Pathfinder, one of my players was a massive rules lawyer. He was the anal person who could literally memorize rule books. And I just put him to work for me. I'm like, all right, you know what? We need to learn how attacks of opportunity work in this game. So next week, I want you to come back and explain to the group, you tell us how the rule works. Or we're about to do something and, Phil's about to cast his spell. So Bob, would you mind helping him look that up before we get to his turn? And this is the kind of thing that he would do constantly. He had the rule book there, and he had it open all the time. And no matter what we were doing, he had the rule down. And if somebody wanted to do something weird, okay, you guys are about to grapple while falling off a bridge into the water wearing heavy armor. And, okay, what are the rules for that? And he would just read them off real quick. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just starting the game out. But he did all the heavy lifting on that end. He liked doing that. He never wanted to be in charge. But I've been in a lot of games, even with players that I don't know very well, where I've seen them deal with, what we're doing is we're playtesting the one engine, where we're still trying rules out. Some of the people that have come to those games are people I don't know at all. And I tell them after that, we're still working on some stuff. And they'll tell you, how do you think we want to do this or whatever. They're good players. They're complete strangers, but they're good players. And they took all of my anxiety at running a game for that completely away because they played well. And as a player, you can do that for your GM when you see them stumbling a little bit. Let them stumble through it a little bit and boost their confidence up. That's all I'm going to tell you. I said, if you can run for good players, they'll pretty much get your confidence down. We've all talked here tonight about how we've all been doing things where we said, I really screwed that up. And it was like, oh, no, we had a good time because they were good players and they enjoyed it. They found a way to have fun with it no matter what. That's really what we're there for. You talked about prep. The one thing I'll say about prepping is that as a GM, one of the toughest things I've learned that is when I over prep for a game and you feel like you're doing something wrong because they didn't get to the stuff that you prepped for. You wrote 7 encounters with clues. They discovered the mystery after 2. Just let them go.
Yeah.
Don't force them on. So, all right. So that's my comment on GM confidence. Get good players.
All right. So let's wrap it up. We'll wrap up our discussion on GM confidence. We hope that this has bolstered your confidence by hearing our struggles and some of our wins. And hopefully you can put some of this advice to use. Let's check in one more time with the chat room, and then we'll head over to the conversation corner and get this thing towards the end.
Yeah, Chris brought up something that I really enjoy. One of his new favorite GM things is to let players at the table play NPCs and scenes when their characters aren't there. That to me is a lot of fun. Angie agreed. She had a group that had so much fun doing an interlude where they played some of the major NPCs in the campaign to go on a rescue mission. When you aren't there, your character isn't physically there, and you have the opportunity to flex your muscles, a different set of muscles, to play an NPC and be somebody else temporarily. It keeps everybody engaged. So if you're not in a scene, you're not just sitting there. And it's to me, it's a lot of fun.
I've heard, and I've not read the rules to any detail yet, but I've heard that is a thing that in Star Trek Adventures, that if, for instance, you're not beaming your character down, you can play one of the like gold shirts.
Yeah,
you can.
If it's not there, that's a rule that I would use anyway.
Right. I think it's like the lower decks rule or something. Like you just like, okay, well, the doctor doesn't need to beam down for this adventure. Cool, you're going to play ensign so and so.
Yeah,
we did it a lot when I was running D&D in college. To the point where we had players that liked the NPCs so much, we ran NPC-based adventures like Ange talked about. We even had one week where the players really screwed up and got captured, and so they then went through the list of people they knew to see who are they going to play next week that would come rescue them because they screwed up. They didn't even bother to try to escape. We're just going to let's pick our favorite NPCs and put them together and form a super team to go rescue the heroes.
That's cool.
And
very comic booky. Like
it is.
Yeah.
It is, but it also just fits. The players will be so much more invested in scenes, and it's something I think helps a lot when you've got when the party splits and has to split. It keeps it from just being one or two people talking to the GM while everybody else is sitting watching. If they can play the character's familiar or the other guard or the wash boy, or sometimes the NPCs are talking to on the other side. Chris has had us do that a couple times too, where we've literally played the NPC the PC is encountering. The guards at the bank the one time.
Yep. Good times.
It's good. It's really good. All right.
Let's migrate over to the conversation corner.
Hey, let's go to the conversation corner with a bumper. Doom, 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 doom. All right. So,
take it away, Bob.
Off here. Yeah, I just thought of something a couple minutes ago that I didn't originally put in the notes here, but I spent a chunk of time this afternoon sitting down with Roll20 and putting together macros for Chris's Eberron 5e game every other Friday night. Jim inspired me with putting together the macro that he did for Forbidden Lands, and I was like, I made a whole bunch of macros where all I did was put /R and the die I wanted to roll and the bonus I wanted to add it to. But there's a whole language of script that you can use and a template that you can use to make it look like you clicked a button on the character sheet for the game that you're playing in Roll20. And my character for this 5e Eberron game isn't in Roll20. It's all outside, but I made a bunch of macros to do the stuff. So I went through and I created a bunch of templated macros that now look like all the other stuff that the people who have their characters in there look like. And I thought that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool, actually.
And I spent some time catching up on videos on YouTube for like MCU rumor mill stuff and leaked info for stuff coming out. I had gotten behind on a bunch of those videos. I need to get back into some of the series that I started to binge, but I haven't gotten back to. Like, I fell off completely from Tales from the Loop after the 4th episode, and I haven't gone back. It's been like 2 weeks.
Oh, man, I haven't even started that yet.
Me too. Same one.
Yeah. And then I had this past week done some proofreading and editing for Third Eye Games and Angry Hamster. And Angry Hamster's put together an anthology of games that they put together. And I had a brief moment of game design inspiration while I was reading that, and then it went away. So I'm like, damn, I may try and go back to that, but
had a few moments of inspiration, like,
exactly.
Yes, well. How about you, Jared? What have you been up to?
Well, work, but no, Minecraft. Lots of Minecraft. While binge watching the shows, I just been playing around. Bob taught me how to make my own capsules just to capture things, which is something you do in Minecraft. You throw a bottle and you end up getting everything in a 6x6 or 10x10 or 9x9 square. And then Bob decided that we wanted to try something together, so we decided to build a marina in my town. And what I was planning on doing over the course of 4 or 5 days, Bob came and did them one night, which was a lot of fun because then we just kind of tidied it up. when Bob sets his mind to something, he is a building machine.
Bob's architecture is actually very enjoyable. I think it was a season or two ago, Logan's Mountain 2.0, when he like redid the entire face of Logan's Mountain with chiseled stone. Like,
so we now have what started out as a village of 7 buildings is now up to over 80. I have figured out how to go to other dimensions and steal entire buildings, or at least part of them. And that's been part of the fun, because I like to modify. So I'll capture something and not get the whole building. And I'll just bring it back and build onto it. Then I got to the point where I started going around naming all the shops in town. So there's signs on all the shops. I have repositioned over 100 villagers back to our area. It's an interesting, for me it's just live action Lego, really. But
that's a whole part of Minecraft is live action Lego.
Yes. And I also watched that Chris Hemsworth movie, Extraction.
Oh, was that any good? I was going to watch that with Dante.
It is all action. It's all high beat, almost no low beat.
Yep.
There's not much of a plot. It's fun. It's really well done. Did not like the ending at all.
No, okay.
And but I understand why they did it. It felt like the middle of another movie. But it's fun. I'm not saying don't watch it. I'm saying I wouldn't run out and like put a lot of time down to it. It's not a movie you got to pay a lot of attention to, so you can do it while like cooking or something. And the fight scenes are fun. I mean, it's Captain America, the Winter Soldier style combat.
Well, that's what I'm in for, right? If I'm watching a movie like that, I'm pretty much in it for the action.
Yeah.
So,
and Chris Hemsworth being Chris Hemsworth and Rock. And for those of you who like that, he spends a lot of time with his shirt off and things like that. So,
all right, well, that's also a plus.
Yeah. Okay, Phil.
Well, I also played more Minecraft. I ran out of things to do in our server. Although I think I'm going to go back and find some stuff to do. I went and kicked over one of my other instances and was playing that for a while. My other instance has a quest book, so it was fun to go like do stuff and get quests. I like that. I finished Picard, so I really enjoyed Picard a bunch. I will definitely resubscribe to CBS when they put another season on. That will for sure. I've been binge watching Deep Space Nine. I started with, I don't even remember what episode I started on. I started by just watching an episode in season 3 and then just didn't stop. So I've just been watching them all the way through. Now Worf's on the station, and I am constantly impressed with the writing of that show. I've been watching some Next Gen on the side, just cherry picking Next Gen episodes to watch, like all my favorites. Like I just go watch one of those as kind of a thing to break up the time. Deep Space Nine's doing a lot for my mental health. Like I feel really good watching Star Trek stuff again. Like I forgot how much of a Trek nerd I am, and 2, I've just really been enjoying watching something positive, like where the good guys are good, right? Like where people are honorable and honest and things like that. So I've really enjoyed that. I'm reading Star Trek Adventures because I'm more than certain I'm going to run a Star Trek game in the future. That is now for sure going to happen, because the more I watch Deep Space Nine, the more I'm like, oh no, I'm going to run some of this. Like, and as I'm reading Star Trek Adventures, I'm like, wait, this rule set sounds kind of fun. Like these rules don't seem too hard. They don't. They seem to make sense. So I'm looking forward to it. I've been reading it a little each night, not pushing myself, but I'm digging what I'm reading. I'm playing a shit ton of Mario Kart Tour on my phone. It's an app game. So first of all, it's Mario Kart, and I fucking love Mario Kart. It's probably next to Minecraft, my second favorite video game of all time. The app implementation of it is quite good, but make no mistake, it is an app game. There are like 4 different currencies in this game. You get rewarded constantly. The dopamine hits for the number of things you can earn, win, get, find, buy, acquire is severe. and it's on a 2-week cycle. So every 2 weeks, a new tour starts. And when a new tour starts, you get all new tracks, all new things to earn, all new challenges to win, currencies and everything else. So it's great. Like Sunday, I was like running out of things to do in the game because I basically achieved all the things that I could potentially achieve. Like I was like, I can't eke out any more stars on any of these tracks. I can't, like, there's no more things for me to win. But tomorrow morning, the new tour will start and I can start all over again, earning stuff and whatever. So, it's a dopamine fest. Like it, you know that I know Jerry will know this. You know that first week when you joined Marvel, like, and you just kept getting shit and like it wouldn't stop. That's what like every day of this game is like. And it's Mario Kart. So it's races and throwing shells at people and shit like it's ridiculous. I'm playing a shit ton out of it. Good. If you're also playing it, I am DNA Phil.
Of course.
You can friend me on Mario Kart. I'll get the request. I will friend you back. There is a thing where if you are friends with people, your combined scores each week gets you bonus coins. Because just the more friends you have, the more connected you are, and you can play multiplayer. Anyway, ridiculous. And then lastly, the other thing that's given me life is I've been doing some cooking. I discovered this delicious stir-fry sauce at Wegmans, the spicy orange stir-fry sauce. It is chef's kiss.
How spicy is it?
Not spicy. I actually put red pepper flakes in it to spice it up a little.
Because spicy orange sounds like it would be right up my alley if it's not super hot.
It's orange chicken sauce. It's orange chicken sauce. Cool. It's the brown sauce it's got a really good, strong orange flavor. Okay. It's a little spicy, but like I said, when I've been cooking with it, I just dump red pepper flakes in with what I'm cooking and just bump it up a little. But I've made a couple stir fries with it and I love it. Like I'm even just thinking like this week, I'm like, can I make another stir fry like, this week while, like during the work week? Because I will totally eat another one. I made that and I made this awesome, I talked about it on Panda, so I won't talk about it here, but I made this awesome brunch on Sunday from a recipe in Bon Appetit that was actually pretty easy to make and was seriously delicious. So yeah, I've been having a lot of fun cooking. Like I'm eating better because I'm not eating out very much. So I'm eating fantastic and I'm eating great food. Like lockdown in terms of food has been very, very good to me. Like I'm doing okay in that respect and kind of having fun. I'm really liking getting up from my desk and going in the kitchen, actually making a meal and then going back to my desk, eating it and then going back to work. Like I like this much more than getting my car and, going through the Burger King drive-through and then, hating myself.
Yeah, I'm actually losing weight during the lockout. So
yeah, I think I'm losing some too. Oh, I will tell you one thing. I took my car out for a spin the other day. Nope. You know what? Leave it for the end of the show. We'll do the after show for that. Let's pack it up and get out of here. It's getting late.
Pack it up. How about some Patreon shout outs?
Let me begin.
Yes.
Okay. So this week we're going to shout out to Jeff Stevens, Jim Morrison, Joe Rasso, John, MT Black, Matthew Petrozelli, Padme's Lover, Robert Dorgan, Ryan Bolter, and Troy Pitchelman. Thanks to everyone for listening tonight and joining us in the chat room.
If you are free on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. the Queen's time, you're welcome. Come join us live on Twitch where you can chat with the other awesome listeners in the ever awesome chat room for life and ask us the occasional question.
If you cannot make it to the live show, check out our podcast each week wherever you get your podcasts. And take a listen to some of the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, such as Down with D&D, the FM Gamers, Bone Stone Obsidian, Pandas Talking Games, the Gnome Cast, John Who Hustle, She's a Super Geek, and Bonus Experience. You can and should also check out our sibling podcasts, The Tabletop Bellhop, The Knights of the Night, and the always amazing Gaming and BS.
After you have run that awesome episode and our awesome session and are riding that GM high, when your confidence can be no higher, leave us some feedback. You can reach us directly via email, mmp@misdirectedmark.com. Check us out on Twitter. The show, the network, is at Misdirected Mark. He is at GM Gerrymander. He is at Robert M. Everson, and I am DNA Film.
If you like what we do here and on the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, you can support our Patreon campaigns. MMP Down with D&D and Pandas Talking Games are at patreon.com/MMP. She's a Super Geek is at patreon.com/SassGeek. Zhanghu Hustle is at patreon.com/Zhanghu Hustle. And Bonus Experience is at patreon.com/Bonus Experience. Patrons of MMP Down with D&D and Pandas Talking Games get access to the after show, pre-production show notes, musical parodies, the Pandas Talking Games bonus outtakes, and other special releases.
This has been a Misdirected Mark production, the media arm of Encoded Designs. Mic drop.
We out.
Meow.